Hi, this is Lara at Elliott Wave Gold with your daily analysis for Monday 11th of August, recording the video now 5 minutes to 5 PM Eastern Standard Time. Last analysis for the end of last week had a main wave count with a 60% probability which expected more sideways movement for another day or so. That's exactly what we're getting. We've got sideways movement for a fourth wave correction, and it's not quite done. At this point, I expect it's quite likely to end within just a few hours, and when it's done, I'm expecting the upward trend to resume for a final fifth wave, which should be about $40 in length, and the target remains the same at 1346. That target could be met in 2 or 3 days' time. Let's have a look at the chart for the daily chart. The wave count expects that primary wave 4 is a huge regular contracting triangle. It's providing some structural alternation with the running flat of primary wave 2. Primary 2 lasted 53 weeks. Primary 4 so far is in its 59th week, so they're reasonably in proportion. At the weekly chart level, the wave count has an absolutely textbook typical look. They're also showing alternation in depth of correction. Primary 2 was a relatively deep correction. Primary 4 is turning out to be very shallow. This huge regular contracting triangle is incomplete, and I expect we're in the final stages of the last zigzag for intermediate wave E, subdividing 5, 3, 5. Minor wave C must subdivide as a 5-wave structure. It's clearly not an ending diagonal, so the only other possibility is the much more common impulse. That's what's unfolding. Within minor wave C, it's a very clear 1, 2, 3, 4. When 4 is done, we need 5 up. I'll be expecting 5 to be about even in length with the third wave, which was just over $40, because that is going to be required to take minor C beyond the end of A. It's extremely likely that price will move at least slightly above 1345.22, this high here, so that minor C is not truncated. At 1346, it will manage to be not truncated. It would also be 0.618, the length of minor wave A. At this point in time now, it looks like minor wave C may not exhibit a Fibonacci duration in the number of days it lasts. It may also not exhibit a Fibonacci duration or proportion to the duration of minor B or A. So in figuring out when the target might be met, I'm now going to look at how long I would expect the final fifth wave to last. If this fifth wave is about even in duration with the third wave and length, then it'll last about 3 days. So I'm expecting the target to be met in 2, minimum 3, possibly and maybe even 4 days' time, 2 to 4 days. Intermediate wave E is most likely to fall short of this black AC trend line because that's a very, very common place for the final subwave of a triangle to end. Here's a good example, here's another very good example, and here's another good example. The target at 1346 would see intermediate wave E do that. The final E wave of a contracting triangle may not move beyond the end of C above 1392.30. That invalidation point is black and white. Even the tiniest fraction above it would invalidate the wave count at primary degree. Within minor wave C, no second wave correction may move beyond its start below 1280.35. When this huge triangle for primary wave 4 is over in a few days' time, at that point I'll be expecting a primary degree trend change and a new fifth wave down to take gold to new lows, and that final fifth wave at primary degree should be relatively short. It's probably going to be about $388 in length, and if it reaches equality in length with primary 1, it could also be very quick. Primary 1 lasted only 3 weeks. Primary 5 could also be as quick, but it's more likely to be a bit more long-lasting than that. That's a bit unusual for a primary degree wave. Okay, let's have a look at how minor wave C is unfolding on the hourly chart, where it begins down here, this point down here. So far we have a nice clear 1, 2, 3, 4 is incomplete, and then we need 5 up. The second wave was a double zigzag. It's a deep 87% correction, and it lasted 49 hours. If the fourth wave is a triangle, as I've labelled it here because I think that's most likely, or a double combination, which is also entirely possible, it could morph into that, and it lasts a few more hours, and it will be nicely in proportion to the second wave, and it will show perfect alternation in structure and alternation in depth of correction. This fourth wave is relatively shallow, hovering about the 0.382 Fibonacci ratio now of minute wave 3, and I expect it's not going to move much more below that, below 1307.3. It's probably going to end really close to that point. If it takes long enough to get out to touch this lower edge of this pink channel, I would expect it to find support there. That may be where it ends and where a bounce for the final fifth wave up is initiated. Draw this channel using Elliott's first technique. Draw the first trend line from 1 to 3, place a copy on 2. This fourth wave may not move into first wave price territory below 1297.32. At this stage, I expect the fourth wave is most likely, as I've labelled it here, a small regular contracting triangle. But if we see much movement above this point here, labelled minuet B of the triangle, then this fourth wave most certainly could be morphing into some kind of double combination. We'd have a zigzag, the X wave somewhere in here, and then a Y wave, a second corrective structure, most likely a flat, to make a double combination. Both triangles and double combinations are mostly sideways moving structures, so whichever of the two it turns out to be, it's most likely just going to move sideways and find strong support at this pink trend line here. When I know where minute wave 4 has ended, then I can add to this target calculation at a second wave degree. At this point in time, I can only calculate it at minor degree. So in tomorrow's analysis, this small target may widen to a small zone or it may change, but at this point in time, I do not expect it to change by very much, if at all, but it might change tomorrow when I can calculate the target at minute degree as well. That's all from me today with your gold analysis, and I hope all our members had a most fabulous weekend.